Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sammy if you didn't know, and today we're talking all about money. I think financial transparency is like super important, and I feel like there really isn't any. There's definitely a lot more, I guess, than there is in the past. Like I feel like 5 years ago you didn't know what anyone made, you didn't know like anything about anything. But I feel like it is so important to know what other people your age in your area, like your demographics, are making, how much they're spending on housing, how much they're spending on purchases, their lifestyle, how much people pay in taxes, all of these things that I feel like are so taboo to like actually just ask somebody. But I think if we knew what other people's spending habits were and what other people's salaries were, like all of these things, it could help us make a lot better financial decisions and could even help people like get paid more. If I knew that like other girls my age in my field were making like $20,000 more than me in my area, I would definitely ask for more money. And as a woman especially, I feel like in corporate America, it is so easy to be undervalued. And so by knowing what other people make and spend, all of the things, I feel like it's just super helpful. With that being said, I went over on Instagram and I asked you guys, like, let's talk about money. What do you want to know? I said really nothing's off limits, and I got a lot of questions. So we're just gonna kind of like go through the most asked ones. And I just want to preface this entire video by saying I am not a financial advisor. I'm not an accountant. All I can talk about is my experience, my husband's experience. I feel like if you're self-employed especially, finding a really good accountant or a financial advisor is super important because they will help you with a lot of like the scary things. Even if you're not self-employed and you just want someone to help, I'm just sharing my 2 cents of what I think. Take it with a grain of salt. Okay, so the first question is your job salary straight out of college and your husband's and how you all budgeted. I feel like this can kind of set up like a little bit of my background. So I went to a 4-year university and I got a degree in marketing and communication. I'm very, very blessed to say most of my college was paid for by my grandma. She saved for college for me and she paid for a lot of my college. I do have a student loan, but it's very, very minimal and I could pay it off anytime if I wanted to. My husband does have student loans. I want to say he probably has like $20,000, $30,000 in debt. He did get like a lot of FAFSA money, so he doesn't have a ton of debt, which we are super thankful for. He went to college for 5 years, I think. 5.5, 5. Something like that, and he has an engineering degree. So I graduated college in December of 2019. I actually graduated a semester early because I kind of like switched my majors around and like made it to where I could graduate a semester early. And I got my job straight out of college working at my university. So I made $45,000. I was super happy with my salary and it came with amazing benefits because it was at the university. So I got all my insurance paid for. It was free to me, which was super, super great, and it was amazing insurance. I got like, I want to say like 25 days vacation or something, and we got like tons of sick time, tons of vacation time. We followed the university calendar, so like anytime the university was off, I was off. And you get free tuition. So I was getting my master's degree until I decided I don't really even want my master's degree and I'm gonna leave this job, and so I stopped doing that. But I also got free tuition, which was really, really cool. I was super happy with the $45,000. It was straight out of college. We didn't have any expenses really, like we didn't have our house yet, we weren't married yet, so I was like living large on the 45K. Also, I don't know if I said this, if you don't know anything about me, I live in the Midwest, so we live in Ohio, and this is all like Midwest rates. I feel like this would be very different if I lived on the East or West Coast, so take that with a grain of salt. I'm talking Midwest dollars, which are very different than dollars elsewhere. So I worked that job from January 2020 all the way through September 2021. And then my husband actually graduated in, I want to say, June of 2021, maybe. So he went to school, but it was like COVID, so it was all online. And he was laid off for COVID, so we made $600 a week from his unemployment, which was actually more than he was getting paid as like a student co-op where he worked. So it worked out beautifully for us. And then his first job out of college, I want to say, was for $63,000. As for budgeting, to be honest, we really did not budget ever. Like we tried, and we failed. We didn't have a ton of expenses, to be honest. We definitely should have, but we were saving a lot of money still. We were like just kind of spending willy-nilly, and it was during COVID, so like there really wasn't money to be spent on things. We kind of saved a lot because we weren't doing anything. Okay, this question asks, what was your financial situation like when you first got married? I feel like I kind of just touched on this, but I was working my full-time job, so I did photography kind of sort of, but I really wasn't making good money at it at all. And then Sage was unemployed. He was laid off from COVID, but he was again making that $600 a week, so we were doing pretty well. We had just bought our house probably about 5 months before we got married. Our wedding wasn't that much money, so we were able to get married. I, to be honest, didn't really see finances as a barrier to us getting married. I don't know like if that was just really naive of me. We got married pretty young, but even if like we would have both been in college, I feel like we were both living on our own already. Like it wasn't like one of us lived with our parents or anything. We were both already living on our own. So like if we lived on our own together, it didn't seem like it would be that different, I guess. I don't know. I think a lot of people choose to wait to get married because of finances, and I don't think that that's a bad idea by any means, but For us, I guess I just didn't really think about it. Like, I was just like, oh, we'll make it, it'll be fine, and it did turn out fine. Okay, so I got a lot of questions about like home buying, how we bought our first home, how we bought this home, like mortgages, all that stuff. So I'm gonna try to just like talk about our entire like homeowner experience and hope that that kind of answers all the questions. So like I had mentioned, we bought our first home in March of 2020. We actually signed the papers like a day before COVID actually like kind of hit the US and shut everything down, which was a huge blessing because we were able to buy our first home for, I want to say $137,000, which probably sounds absolutely nuts if you live in like the West Coast or the East Coast or anything like that, but we had a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. It was in like kind of a crappy school district, but a really nice area of where we live. It wasn't like a super established neighborhood by any means, but it was definitely like a nice-ish area. Like, it wasn't like dangerous or anything. And I believe I made an entire video about like buying our first house, so I'll link that down below. But basically we were able to use like first-time home buyer grants. We didn't put any money down on the house, which was again a huge blessing. And our mortgage for that house originally was $1,050, and then we refinanced during COVID to a 2% interest rate. So to be honest, I'm missing that interest rate. We kind of should have sat on that house for longer, but that's okay. And our payment went down to $927 a month after we like did the whole refinancing thing. So we were paying like hardly anything to live in that house, to be honest. It was a beautiful house. I loved that house so much. Really, the only reason we sold it a couple years later was the market was just going nuts, and we knew we eventually like wanted to switch houses. The plan was to only be in that house for like 3 to 5 years anyway, and we were coming up on our 2nd year in the house, which really isn't that long, I know. But before we had kids, before like we did a lot of the things we wanted to do, we did know that we wanted to move. So we thought it was a really good opportunity to sell the house while the market was going crazy because we knew we wanted to sell it anyway. So we ended up selling the house for, I want to say, $171,000. So we profited, after all of like the fees, the everything, we profited around like $28,000, I want to say. We did sell our house for sale by owner, and the people that bought it did not have a realtor. So it was very easy. No one really was paying realtors. Worked out very, very well. Did I say that right? I think we actually made more money. 137. I think we made like maybe $35,000 on the house. I don't remember, to be honest, because a lot of it just like went straight into this house. Like, I feel like there was a lot of purchasing and money flying around everywhere when we bought and sold our house. So I think it was closer to like $35,000 we made on the house. I think like, yes, okay, it was 35,000-ish. 28 maybe was what we had in the bank for a minute. I don't know where I got that number. Scratch what I just said. I think investing in real estate is one of the best things you can do if you are able to do it. I know it is very, very intimidating, especially if you live in a part of the country where real estate is like $1, $2, $3 million to live in like a nice area. However, if it is at all possible, I think it is important even to invest in maybe buying a condo or something like that, because you're putting your money into owning a property. And real estate as a general, I say that very loosely. Again, I'm not a financial advisor or anything, but it's always going to go up. If you have a piece of property now, odds are in 20 years is going to have increased in value. So I think it's a pretty safe place to park your money if you're able to do that. Now, when it comes to this house we moved into, it was much more expensive. So the ticket price on our house was $405,000, which is a lot of money. And we pay about $3,100 a month in our mortgage. So our mortgage tripled compared to our old house. And again, I know that that might seem like a lot to some people, and it might seem like nothing to other people, depending on where in the country you live. To us, it's a lot of money. Definitely a good chunk of our like work money goes into the house. However, it is everything we wanted. We have a beautiful backyard, we have a beautiful home, we'll stay here for a very, very long time, if not forever. So it felt worth it to make this investment now rather than in 5-10 years when maybe the price of the house would be even more money. We do have a pretty high interest rate on this house because we did buy it kind of when the market was still a little crazy. I want to say it's like a 5% interest rate. Eventually, if the interest rates do go down, we probably will refinance, and hopefully our mortgage would go down because we will have paid more equity in the house, so hopefully we can drop the mortgage insurance. This seems like a lot of jargon. If you don't really know much about mortgages, you have the interest, you have the principal, you have like all these other fees like mortgage insurance if you don't put a ton of money down. Your realtor can help. I want to say we ended up putting about 4% down on this house. So after all of the closing costs, after like the money we put down, I think it ended up being, maybe this is where I got the number, around like $28,000 into this house, which again, we kind of just took from what we made at the old house. So we really didn't like spend a lot of money, which again is a really, really huge blessing. We were able to do a lot of the work in this house because of what we made on the last house. There's still a lot of work to be done in this house, and it's going to be slow and steady, but I'm very happy with where we're at. I feel like that was really long, but hopefully that answered any like house mortgage cost questions. Okay, I lied. This is actually one more house question. This person said, also self-employed and wanting to buy my first house and scared with getting approved. I feel like I'm kind of just gonna read some of the questions and then we'll talk about everything. So someone else asked, do you make more money now than when you worked at your salary job? Someone asked, how much do I pay in taxes? So I feel like all of that kind of wraps up into like my job, being self-employed, buying a house when you're self-employed. So to answer the one question, yes, I do make about double what I made as a salary employee now working for myself. It fluctuates a lot because I am self-employed. My job is like very much based on how many people book me. So I don't like know any given year what I'm gonna make. It's a very inconsistent income. However, yes, I do make double at least what I made at my salary job, which is again, huge blessing. So when it comes to buying a house when you're self-employed, it's really tough. We were struggling a lot because basically when you're self-employed, if you don't want to pay an arm and 2 legs in taxes, you have to deduct a lot of your income. And this kind of talks about taxes too, so I guess I'll touch on all of it. Basically, I have a business bank account, I have a business card, so any business purchases are like all made through that business bank account. That's where all my money comes in, that's where my money goes out, and it's all recorded in like a system that at the end of the year I can give to my accountant and say, okay, these were my deductions, these were my business expenses, and then we spit out like my bottom line like income, and then that is what's taxed. So let's say for the sake of numbers, I make $100,000 and then I have $30,000 in deductions or business expenses. That $70,000 is the only thing that I am getting taxed on, not the $100,000. So just because some things are write-off, that doesn't mean you're like not spending money. You're still spending the money. It's just deducted from how much you have to pay at the end of the year for taxes. Now, when it comes to buying a house, they look at that bottom number. So they're not looking at the 100 grand you made. They're looking at the 70 or 60 or 50 or 40, whatever you end up coming up with when you write things off. So this can end up really screwing some people because you can make, I mean, let's say $200,000. But if you're only claiming and like saying you made $25,000 because you have all these business expenses, all of this, whatever, you got paid in cash, whatever, like all of the things, the mortgage company is only going to look at that $25,000 and they're only going to approve you for that like amount of house. Also, you need to have 2 years of self-employed income to qualify to even like buy a house basically. So when we bought our first house, I wasn't self-employed, so it didn't matter. We bought it, we got it, it was easy. When we went to go buy this house, qualifying my income was very difficult. My dad is actually the person that like did our loan, and he had to go through to like underwriting court. I had to submit a ton of information on like what I was making because I wasn't yet 2 years self-employed. By like a legal standing, like I had to do 2021 and 2022 taxes, and we bought our house at the end of 2022. So like I didn't have those taxes filed yet. So basically it took a lot of work. We had to like go to underwriting a bunch of times, but we did end up getting approved. If you're looking to buy a house and you're self-employed, I recommend trying to like not write off like hardly anything. It's gonna really bite you in the butt when it comes to taxes, and it's gonna suck and you're gonna have to pay a lot in taxes. But if you want to get approved for like a good mortgage, it's really important to show that you make the most amount of money as possible. Again, this might be if you're single or if you're not married. It might be more important if you're married and let's say your partner makes a lot more money. You can totally lean on them and hope that their income can get the mortgage. However, I definitely recommend trying to show as much income as possible if you're trying to get a house in the next like couple years. It really sucks when you're paying the taxes, but it'll be worth it when like you get approved for the house you want. I feel like I've jumped around a lot in this video, so sorry. So now we're to our friend, the taxes, the good old IRS. Bottom line is you pay a lot in taxes when you're self-employed. We ended up paying about $15,000, $16,000 for 2022's taxes. I didn't pay quarterly, and I'm going to this year. I made like a couple quarterly payments, but not a lot. And so we had to pay lump sums at the end of the year, which really isn't fun. I also had my husband's income to kind of like help offset that because he worked a regular job, so we were already paying like some taxes. But yeah, we paid probably $16,000-ish. Probably have to pay a little bit more next year, so. I love my job, but the tax part is a bit stressful. It's a lot. I don't really even know what I'm doing when it comes to taxes, to be honest. I lean on my friend a lot, who's my accountant, and she like helps out. So yeah, that's how much I pay in taxes, if you were wondering. Okay, so this person asked best travel credit cards. I am really bad about using credit cards. I really don't utilize them well. There are way better people to talk to you about credit cards, but I have the American Express Delta card, and long story short, I don't use it for travel because like I had it when I was like a Liebig, before I was married, and my maiden name was my name. And then I got married, I changed my name, and like it changed in the American Express account, but it didn't ever change with like my Delta Sky Miles. So there's like some sort of mishap in between the two. I tried to call and like I didn't get it figured out. So basically, long story short, none of my purchases are going to the Delta Sky Miles account, and I can't actually book flights with the Delta Sky Miles number because the names don't match. Like when I go to book the flight, it's Samantha Tansel, and then my Delta Sky Miles number is Samantha Liebig, and they're like, oh, this isn't the right person, and it doesn't work. But I think the American Express card is a pretty good one. That's what my friend uses, and she's like pretty credit card savvy, and she has that same one. I want to say there's like the Chase Sapphire or something that has a lot of good benefits. Definitely talk to someone else about that. But the Delta American Express one I think is pretty good. That's the one I have. Okay, so this person asked, buying a car used outright versus car payment, pros and cons to both. So for our cars, I have the same car that I've had since 2019. I pay, I want to say $260 a month for it. And the ticket price on the car was maybe like $12,000. And my car is almost paid off. And I'll probably drive it, honestly, again, till we like have kids and I want like an SUV. I just drive like a Chevy Cruze. I like my car. It's fine. It gets me from point A to point B. And I am totally fine with that payment. I think a lot of people want to buy a car outright and not have the monthly payment, and good for you if you're able to do that. I think that's great. I don't mind having the monthly payment because it's relatively small. I think where people get into a lot of financial trouble is that they go to the car dealership, they fall in love with this car, it's brand new, and it's maybe a $50,000 car. And maybe this person can genuinely only afford like a $300 payment, but the car salesman gets them into this loan that's like an 8-year loan for like $550 a month. And then basically by the time your car is paid off, it is not worth anything compared to like what you actually paid on it. So I think it's very important to be smart when purchasing a car. I will never buy a brand new car. I don't care how much money I make. I genuinely don't think I will ever buy a brand new car. I'll buy like a 2023 like used car that has like 2,000 miles, but I don't think I'll ever buy a new car. So then Sage's car situation. Sage is my husband. He's more of a car guy. He details cars for a living. He loves cars. So this man has cycled through quite a few cars in our marriage. However, that is okay. We haven't really necessarily lost a ton of money on any of the cars he's like bought and sold. But the car he currently drives, he'll be keeping for a while. It's a Lexus, and we did pay for that outright. So he does have a loan on it for like a year, and I think that was because like the car dealership, like they would get him a better deal if he like got a loan on it for like a year and then like paid it off. It's only like a $2,000 like loan. We paid the rest like outright. I don't know, to be honest, I think it just depends on your family, your lifestyle, if you can afford to just buy a car or if you can only afford to make a monthly payment. To me, cash now is better than cash later. So having that money now in case something were to happen or I can invest it in something is better than dumping a bunch of money into like 2 really nice cars. I don't know. I don't know the right answer. I feel like Dave Ramsey says something and then like other people say something. We have a loan on my car. Sage's car is paid off. So. Okay, this person asked, do you have a lot of business expenses or is photography pretty affordable to run? I would say I don't have a lot of business expenses compared to someone who's maybe selling a product. I have probably $300 or $400 a month in like subscription-based things. So like what I use to edit, what I use to like send my invoices, what I use to deliver my galleries, my website, like all of those type of things. And then I do travel a lot for work. So I have a lot of like travel expenses, whether it is food when I'm traveling, rental cars, like hotels, blah, 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 all of those things. I have a lot of travel expenses. You can really write off a lot when you're a photographer. You can write off any education, you can write off any like props, anything you need for a session, you can write off your gas, you can write off part of your like house. Like my little office space, we can write off the square footage for that. Definitely worth it to invest in an accountant if you are self-employed. They will help you write off a lot of things. Okay, so this question is, have you made any really dumb purchases that you regret? To be super honest, I don't think we have. There's nothing I can think of off the top of my head that I was like, wow, that really was stupid. Like I mentioned earlier, my husband's kind of like cycled through cars, and I think that's been a little hard for me because like I don't understand, because I'm not like a car person, why you would want to switch cars often. But I don't necessarily think any of them were dumb purchases. Like we didn't like lose a ton of money or like anything like that. I think if anything, it was just like stressful. Oh, I do have one. I have a dumb purchase. So basically we were engaged. This was in like 2019, and I had this really crappy like Chevy Malibu, and it was really unsafe. Like for whatever reason, this car was so bad in the winter. Like I felt like anxious driving it at all in the winter. Long story short, I had to get rid of it. So I ended up buying this like GMC Terrain like SUV that we saw like on the side of the road. Someone was selling it. It was like a family, whatever. They said it was a fine car. We bought it. This is a long story, so I'm gonna try to make it as brief as I can. But basically I had to get out like a bank loan that was a personal loan and then turn it into like an auto loan because the bank doesn't give loans to like people buying like cars for cash from other people, if that makes sense. So whatever, I did that. They insured me like, oh, we'll turn it into a car loan once you have the title. Well, so I bought the car and then I went back to the bank and they were like, oh, well, this car's too old. We can't turn it into a car loan. And I was like, you didn't tell me that when I got the loan in the first place. So whatever, it was only like an $8,000 loan, but in college, like that was a lot of money to me. Like I did not have a lot of money. I think when I like graduated college, I maybe had like $3,000 to my name, like saved up, and that like felt like a lot of money to me. So whatever, I had like a 10% interest rate on this like personal loan. I was kind of stressed about it, but I was like, whatever, it's fine. 2 or 3 months goes by with the Terrain and it's like burning through oil really quick. Long story short, the car was like broken. It had this like undetectable issue that like it burned through the oil. I forget exactly what was wrong with it, but it was gonna be like a very, very expensive fix. So we had to trade the car in. That's when I got my blue car, like my Chevy car that I drive right now. And I lost probably about $5,000 on that car and I had to pay the loan outright because what it traded in for was like not nearly as much as what I had the loan out for it for. And I wasn't gonna like resell it to someone knowing that it had this problem. I feel like morally that's just wrong. I'm not gonna do that. I lost a lot of money on it. It was like, honestly, this sounds so ridiculous, but that day in the car dealership when I was like trading that car in and buying the car I have now was probably one of the most like, I don't wanna say traumatic because that is really dramatic. One of the most dramatic, I guess, days of my life because I like was just crying because I was losing like $5,000 or $6,000 and at the time like that was all the money I had. Like I was gonna have to pay off this car that I didn't even have anymore with every last dime I had, and we were planning our wedding. Like it was just the most stressful experience. So I guess that would maybe be the only dumb purchase, but it's nothing, like we really haven't done anything dumb. Okay, we only have a couple more questions. I feel like this video is really long. It's already been recording for like 35 minutes. Okay, so someone asked what our monthly expenses are versus how much we make and if we have a budget. So we do have a budget right now and it was really well followed the first like couple months of the year, and then March, April hit, we were traveling forever and the budget kind of flew out the window. So now starting in May, we are trying to like get back on the budget. So our budget consists of all of our bills and then all of like our spending. I want to say it is right around $6,000, which sounds like a lot of like monthly expenses, and it is a lot of monthly expenses. Half of it is our mortgage, so 50% of those expenses are the mortgage. And then we have all of our bills, so like my car payment, any like other payments, phone, like Wi-Fi, utilities, like all of the things, insurance, whatever, all of those. And then we also have in there like all of our weekly like just expenses. So groceries, any like spending, we do give each other like spending money. So I think we have like $50 a week in just like spending money for both Sage and I. We have like a Mabel category. We have like all of these different categories. So in total, $6,000 is like the outlined like amount that we should be spending. And our household income is around $8,000 a month. So $2,000 of that is then supposed to go into savings. Again, like I said, it was going really well the first bit of the year, and then the month of April really, long story short, we put no money in savings. But we did go to Hawaii, so. Okay, this will be the last question, but this person said, girl, how do you afford to travel so much? To be honest, a lot of my travel is paid for, and that's the bottom line. I mean, I am so lucky to have a job that pays me to travel. I would say probably 60 or 70% of the places I've ever been, I went to for work. So when I go somewhere for work, my couple pays for my flight, my hotel, and my rental car for, I would say, 2 to 3 nights. So it depends on where I'm going. Usually I will have them pay for at least 2 nights, maybe 3 if it's like somewhere far to where like I have to kind of travel for longer, if that makes any sense. If I am staying anywhere longer than like the 2 or 3 days, I cover those expenses myself. Same with if Sage comes, we cover all of those expenses like for him to join. But for the most part, for these work trips, like my meals are written off, couples cover a lot of the travel. So it's really, so travel is like actually very cheap. And again, I'm very, very thankful for that. And I think otherwise, like for the travel that we do pay for, I just like love to travel. I didn't travel a ton growing up. And so I feel like I want to take this opportunity while I'm young to see as much of the world as I can. And I still want to travel when we have kids and stuff, but I just want to like see as many things and go to as many places as I can. And we travel a lot with our friends, and I think that's a really fun experience that we get to go places with our friends and create those memories together. We don't really budget when we travel, to be honest. We don't really save up to travel. I don't know. I mean, I guess big places. I'm going to Europe this summer, and so like I'm kind of mentally like saving in my head, but we don't really set aside any like fund for traveling or anything. We just kind of go. And I'm thankful that we have the luxury to be able to just kind of go. We do have a savings, and we sometimes dip into that if there's like something we want to do or someplace we want to go. But to be honest, we do have a safety net, and so we're not super worried about like taking the income that we make and traveling or like going places or buying things, which again, I know is not the case for everybody, and we're super thankful that we're able to do all of the things that we get to do. Okay, that is all of the questions I'm going to answer. This is a super long video, but I hope that it was helpful. I tried to include as many real numbers as I could for you guys. Bottom line is, a lot of your finances are obviously going to be determined by where you live, whether that is where in the country you live or where you live, like apartment, house, etc. Homeownership is a lot more expensive, but I think there are a lot of benefits. And in general, when it comes to finances, if you have like a question of, am I spending too much on this, or am I not spending enough on this thing, or just anything, please don't be afraid to like ask somebody, a family member, a friend. You can ask me, you could ask like anyone. Just like make sure you're asking people and seeking sound like financial counsel, especially if you're making a big purchase, because a lot of big purchases, once you make them, it's really hard to kind of retract that. And I think a lot of young people, especially nowadays with social media, live way above their means, and they rack up credit card debt and they buy things that they don't need because they've been influenced and all of that. And I think it is just really important to try and make good financial decisions, and hopefully this video helped. I don't know if it did at all, but I feel like maybe, I don't know. But thank you so much for hanging out with me. Make sure to hit the like button if you liked this, and subscribe if you haven't yet. If you have any further questions, please let me know down below in the comments. Or if you have any like financial advice that I didn't say that you feel like it's important for people to know, please drop it down below so people can see. And yeah, I will talk to you guys later. Bye!